Hello, welcome to Book Club for Movies. It is Tuesday, February 23rd. We've got me, Amy LeJoie, and he, Samir Roy.
Me?
Me and he. We're the knockoff band of him and her, or whatever Zoe Deschanel.
She and him.
He and him, yeah. We're the knockoff version of that. Yeah, but hey guys, happy Tuesday. We've got another fun and informative show planned. We will be talking about director and writer and producer John Singleton. Yeah, but before that, Samir, what have you been watching besides? I know you and I have been watching some TV shows.
Yes, we watched another episode of Bridgerton.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bridgerton. I grew up, on horror movies and soap operas, so, something like Bridgerton is just right up my alley. I am in a place where I can still be intellectually honest with myself and enjoy fabulous trash. And I think it's so fun. Like, I'm all into like the who is Lady Whistledown. I think it's ridiculous, and it's just supposed to be an entertaining show.
It is.
But it's opening up representation in this milieu to more people of color, which, I'm sure there's some people who will have an ideological problem with it, but I do not as of yet. But I also haven't seen all of the shows, so, I'll keep my mind open, but I am enjoying it so far.
And I am greatly enjoying rewatching it with you.
Yes. I also started watching there's a new HBO series on the Woody Allen and Mia Farrow thing it's just called like Allen v. Farrow is the name of the show. So I was going to started watching that, and I didn't really have time because it was on in the background, and I was actually working a lot today.
Yeah, you want
it's just the first real break I've had all day, so it's been busy, so I wasn't able to focus on that.
And that's
today really I kept
HBO.
It's on HBO.
Okay.
I kept realizing like, oh damn it, like 10 minutes have gone by and I didn't listen to what they were saying. Like, I'll rewind it and try to listen to it, and then I have to do something else, and it just kept happening. So I'm like, okay, I'm putting this off till after 5 when I am done working to really dig in. But my friend did say that they don't really present any new information that we haven't heard before. I don't know how true that is, because it's always different when you're seeing someone interviewed talking about these things. Like, I still want to see how they construct the story. Like, there's someone still telling a story.
I'm very interested to see it. I am a huge Woody Allen fan as a filmmaker, but again, one of those, we briefly mentioned Roman Polanski yesterday. Someone else who I'm a big fan of his films, but
my friend
that are questionable.
My friend is not so big a fan of Woody Allen. She doesn't like the characters he creates for women in his films, because a lot of times they're infantilized or sort of over the top in some other way. There's something lacking for her in terms of representation of female characters. So she's never really liked, and she also just doesn't dig the neurotic Woody Allen type. Like, that is not charming to her. So it's just like these movies are just torture for her to sit through. But people keep working with him, like nothing going on, because he married Soon-Yi Previn and then they had kids, which to me just makes it kind of creepier. But but other people are like, oh well, see, they really love each other, so it's okay. I'm like, I don't know. They do mention the Polaroids. I heard them mention the Polaroids in the trailer for the series. So hopefully I'll get some more, because I haven't read all the details of that. I just believed that this happened because he married the person after. So it's not like anybody made up that story about him and Soon-Yi. Like, while they proved it, they pretty much confirmed it themselves. So we know what happened. But yeah, I'm curious to see how they lay it out. And of course it has Ronan Farrow, who's very well known as a sort of I wouldn't say muckraking journalist. I would say he does a lot of exposés. He's an investigative journalist who's very, very popular now because he's exposed some pretty big things with his commitment to his journalism. So it's going to be interesting to see how he works into the story and There's claims that Mia Farrow coached some of the kids to say what they said, and it's like there's a lot of stuff that like I was too young to really pay attention to it at the time. You know, I was not watching Purple Rose of Cairo when I was 5. I was watching Nightmare on Elm Street, people. Okay, I had my priorities right. No, but yes, it'll be fun for me to really dig into that later.
Yeah, that's
but of course,
I want to watch as well. But I know something else that we watched over the last day, and that was yesterday's pick, Judas and the Black Messiah. Yesterday we talked about the oh-so-dashing Daniel Kaluuya. I think he put on quite a bit of weight for this movie. That was definitely a noticeable.
He did look a little thicker.
Yeah.
But then when we started watching the movie, we were wondering about this poster. I'm like, okay, he's definitely the supporting player in this story, because the movie's really more about the Judas of the story, played by Lakeith Stanfield. It's interesting because isn't there another movie about
they
this?
just came out with the Vanity Fair Hollywood issue for this year, and Lakeith Stanfield is part of the lineup.
Oh, well, that's lovely.
Yeah, he's on a horse.
Oh, wow.
Is there another movie made about this? I don't know.
The Trial of the Chicago 7, isn't that the Aaron Sorkin? That's about the same kind of. I think it's about some of the same people, because the character of what Fred Hampton is like, that movie I think is about the trial of those people.
The Trial of the Chicago 7 is the story of 7 people on trial stemming from various charges surrounding the uprising at the 1968 Democratic National Convention in Chicago. So,
because this all takes place in Chicago too.
Yeah, so maybe there are some crossover characters, but I don't think it's the same plot.
I read something about Fred Hampton specifically. There's that movie specifically talks about him.
Okay.
So this case is part of that story. So it's like there's 2 movies that are about this, to have this story as a subject or part of it. But in neither movie is this character the lead of the film, which is very weird for me. I'm like, well, I feel like there should be a movie just about this guy.
Yeah, it was
like, I would like to see the reverse
role, though. It wasn't like last week when we watched If Beale Street Could Talk, and we were like, we just wish Regina King was in it more. But he had a big part. It wasn't like, oh, he's in it for 10 minutes.
No, he did have a big part, but I'm talking from a film perspective and a story perspective. Right. I would have preferred the story to be about him, because we don't have a movie about him. And I think that there should be. And so they're dividing this movie between, Lakeith Stanfield's character, between Daniel Kaluuya's character, and between the FBI's plot to kill him. And so it's like there's 3 different stories they're trying to divide attention between. So I feel like a lot of the characters were, I think they got kind of a short shrift in terms of the script. So there's a lot of work left to the actors' faces to tell you about their lives that the movie isn't really telling you, because we hear a lot about J. Edgar Hoover and his racism. There's a lot of things that it's trying to do too many things, I think. It needs to be told, but I feel like I actually loved Lakeith Stanfield's performance in this movie. Yeah, I thought he was amazing. But I think there should still be another movie specifically about Fred Hampton that needs to be made, so we can really see everything was special. Because the best parts of the movie, ironically for me, were the opening and closing montages, where you see clips of the actual Fred Hampton speaking. And the beginning, that opening was it gave me this I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be an exciting movie. They're showing clips of Angela Davis speaking. They're talking about all these things. And then it just kind of settles into a traditional biopic type movie, but it's just split between too many storylines. That's how it came across to me.
Yeah, going back super quick to J. Edgar Hoover, can we talk about Martin Sheen's incredible makeup job? It took me a minute to recognize him. Because I
could see,
and I was like, okay, that's Martin Sheen.
I could tell it was him under it. It was just this old. The makeup they do sometimes looks so odd to me, because I'm like, it almost looks like his face is carved out of stone
at times. make up for him. Yeah, I do agree that it would be nice for there to eventually be a movie that's solely about Fred Hampton. Um, but also, I do like that because Lakeith Stanfield's character is so complicated and in many ways unlikable. I kind of like him being the lead because he seems like the
Yeah.
least likely choice of who, you know, it's like, okay, we're supposed to be relating to this guy, but we're like, but he's kind of doing things that aren't great. And
No, the postscript gives you so much more information too. I was like, why
yeah.
isn't the movie giving me this much info? But I know I like that there's a story from that perspective
Mhm.
because it's a really weird place to be in as a character. Like imagine being the actor playing that character. It's kind of terrifying. And then, through, the course of the story, you kind of pick up the idea that like, hey, the police made it easy. It was easy for the police to use this person as a pawn because there's already a system set up to disadvantage people of color in many ways so that they can be used this way. And so it was that this story is, I do think this story that we got in this movie needed to be told as well. And I'm just thinking it would be nice to also have a movie about Fred Hampton himself and about what he did in his life because he was so young, and it's hard to tell because Daniel Kaluuya actually looks like 10 years older than the character actually was.
I think
the character is supposed to be like 20 years old.
Yeah, and he almost is 10 years older than that character in real life. But yeah, I really just think that overall the acting from everyone was absolutely outstanding. Daniel Kaluuya is already getting, as we mentioned yesterday, he's already been nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the Globes and at the SAG Awards. The Oscar nominations have yet to come out, but I think it's a shoo-in that he's going to at least get nominated.
For supporting.
Yeah.
I do think the stronger performers in this movie, though, were Lakeith Stanfield and what was her name? The actress who played Fred Hampton's
wife.
Yeah, because she was incredible.
I've never seen her. Dominique Fishback.
Yes. Her face. There's something about her face that felt familiar, but she was she was so incredible in this movie. I really, really hope that this movie becomes sort of like a springboard to like more work for her in the industry because she was just absolutely incredible. I love the moment when she like walks up to him and tells him exactly what she thinks without any, she's not afraid to speak her mind. And it's like just that one gesture just tells you everything you need to know about that character because she does it in a way that's also she's not trying to hurt him. She's just reminding him that his words have power. You have this power when you're up there. And Daniel Kaluuya really has that aura of command when he's, speaking at these pulpits. So it's like, you can imagine how difficult it will be for someone to walk up to somebody who gives speeches like that and then tell them where they went wrong.
Yeah.
But do it in a way that's not like meant to hurt or be critical or to be mean. It really seems to come from a loving place. It's really, I just love this. She packs so much into her scenes.
Yeah,
it's just so effortless for her that I just I see a star in her, like ready to burst out onto the scene from this movie.
We also mentioned yesterday that this is the first feature film of this director. He's only done TV shows and short films prior to this. And I think for this being someone's first feature film, I thought this was pretty solid compared to some other first feature films we've watched of some other directors.
Yes, it definitely is not as bad as some of the other ones that we've watched, but some of them I didn't like that were first-time directors, and some of them you love. So we definitely have different opinions on those things. But he also hired a really great cinematographer for this movie, so it's very everything about it is really everything's competently crafted. The cinematography, I think, is just a little step above that because I thought the play with light and shadow. I just thought that it felt so fluid the way the movie moved. And, I think that was a really, really great choice for a first-time director to have scored this cinematographer who's well-known now for his work already. So they made the right choices on who to bring into this movie. I do think, after maybe this guy's made another movie or two, things will sort of really gel and they'll really, really understand how to tell a story cinematically. Because I do think that there's some rough edges in the way the story's put together. Like I said, it gets kind of confusing sometimes, and they're trying to tell too many different people's stories in one movie. Like, just focus. A little more focus, and you've got something great coming, you know. So I do see that potential. Because like you said, like there's a couple others we watched that was like, oh, this is their first time directing. And one wonders if they ever made any kind of thing with a camera before. You don't get that feeling here. This person at least has some know-how of how to work on a set and knows how to direct actors, I think, because they got great performances.
Yeah, but overall, I really enjoyed this. Acting was just amazing. So check it out while it's still on HBO Max. I think it's on there for a few more weeks. Then I don't know what they're doing with it. And if you live in a place where theaters are open, then this is in theaters right now.
Yes, enjoy it.
Yeah,
go to the theater and see
theater
it.
for us, because
if you can and it's safe.
Yes.
I'm not forcing people to do things that are unsafe.
Yeah, if you feel comfortable going, go. But today we were talking about the late and somewhat great and somewhat recently late John Singleton. He did pass away in 2019 at age 51. He had a pretty massive stroke. Yeah, he had a stroke and then was in the hospital for a little while, was in a coma, and unfortunately passed away, and had a huge outpouring of love from everyone who has worked with him in the past. But Mr. John Singleton was born January 6, 1968 in Los Angeles. His father was a pharmaceutical company sales exec, and his mother was, and then his father was a real estate agent. He said that he grew up in a Black neighborhood. He went to Blair High School, then Pasadena City College, and then he went to USC School of Cinematic Arts. He was part of something called the USC's Filmic Writing Program. And that's a program that's designed to kind of like really catapult people into the film industry kind of directly from being in their program. He graduated from USC in 1990. In 1991, he came out with his first film, a little well-known movie called Boys in the Hood, which was a huge smash. Certainly like one of the best, I still haven't seen it, but one of the biggest, like debut films from a filmmaker. I think he got into Cannes. He was nominated at the Oscars for Best Original Screenplay and Best Director, making him, at the time, I think he still holds this record, the youngest person nominated at age 24 for that. And he was the first Black man to be nominated for Best Director ever. Since then, it took until 91 for that to happen, which is crazy. But Boys in the Hood, of course, was just like, such an influential and pop culture movie. It's now part of the Library of Congress and everything. Since then, he went on to, he did a lot of music videos. He did more feature films. His second film is the one that we picked for today, Poetic Justice. Definitely known for having more Black actors in his movies and telling Black stories. He did a historical drama in 97 called Rosewood, which got into the Berlin International Film Festival. He did some big, more like blockbuster type things like Too Fast, Too Furious, which I enjoy, but maybe isn't one of the best out of the Fast and the Furious movies if you enjoy those films.
Because the others are just so high quality.
Well, they're good action movies. I still strongly stand by the first one. I really, really enjoy the first film. The other ones are they're crazy action films. But Too Fast and Furious is fun. That's what I'll say about that movie. It's fun and enjoyable to watch.
It's fun.
Yes. He also did.
It's got a good beat and you can dance to it.
Yeah, there we go. He also did Four Brothers, which is actually, those are the only films of his I think I had seen were Too Fast and Furious and Four Brothers, which it's kind of another, both of those got mixed reviews. He's also been a producer. I think he co-produced Hustle and Flow, which we watched a while back for our segment. Yeah, but he's just, people like him. He did few episodes of Empire. He got nominated for an Emmy for doing an episode of American Crime Story, People versus O.J. Simpson. Yeah, so
Oh yes.
yeah, never really and actually wait, he got nominated again. I think he got nominated for producing, oh yeah, Outstanding Documentary. Was nominated for a primetime.
Oh, wait, for which one?
LA Burning: The Riots 25 Years Later in 2017.
Oh yes.
There's this really great quote from him, as far as like his filmmaking goes. Who is calling me, bastards? Okay. He says that he criticized popular studios for, quote, refusing to let African Americans direct Black themed films. He said, they ain't letting the Black people tell the stories. They want Black people to be what they want them to be. And nobody is man enough to go and say that. They want Black people to be who they want them to be, as opposed to what they are. The Black films now, so-called Black films now, they're great. They're great films, but they're just product. They're not moving the bar forward creatively. When you try to make it appeal to everybody, then you don't have anything that's special.
Wow. Well, yeah. I like someone who's that outspoken. He understands he understands what's going on. I just, I wish there were more people that were saying that then. Sorry if you're hearing bad piano sounds. Somebody downstairs is banging away like a cat running across the keyboard, so pardon.
He was married a couple times, had 7 children.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I think
no wonder his
but
no wonder children. He had a stroke.
Yeah, he was real busy.
When he says you kids are working my last nerve, he wasn't kidding.
One thing I thought was really sweet that I read was at his memorial, Cuba Gooding Jr., who pretty much got his start because of him for being in Boys in the Hood. I guess at the funeral he sang One Day More from Les Mis because John Singleton was a fan of Les Mis. I know. One day
oh
more.
My God. Not a dry
more.
eye in the house that day.
Probably not. But he's someone who I think people are really going to look back on his films even more than they do now. I mean, there certainly already is an appreciation for the films that he made, particularly amongst the Black community. But he, yeah.
Well, having a Black filmmaker break into the mainstream in Hollywood, it's like, that's not a small feat. He had to have been like a star at USC to, or first of all, he had to have been super talented to get into the USC filmmaking program. That is one of, I mean, it is a program that churns out more of the blockbuster Hollywood formulaic type filmmakers. Like UCLA, I think turns out more, what that used to be the distinction was that UCLA was more the artistic filmmakers. USC was more the establishment formulaic filmmakers that would work easily in Hollywood. But it's incredibly difficult to get into those schools for production. The fact that he got in obviously means that he was doing some impressive work just as, a student before he even went there. And then he must have made a name for himself because what did you say? He graduated in 1990? And then in 91, he's already got a Hollywood picture that he's directing. Like, how many directors get out of film school and within a year have a major big budget Hollywood movie released in like over 1,000 theaters across the country?
Not many. And he was definitely influenced by other big he was a big fan of people like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, who are 2 of the biggest Hollywood filmmakers. So maybe that was kind of more of the direction that he wanted to go in. But let's talk about today's film. So today's film is Poetic Justice, and this was his second film. So he did Boys in the Hood, and then he got nominated. He did a Michael Jackson video, and then he did this, Poetic Justice. And I love that this is called a street romance for this. But this obviously stars Janet Jackson, and Tupac is in this, as well as who else is in this movie? Maya Angelou is in this. We've got
Poetic Justice.
Regina King. Regina King is in this again. So this is what, our third Regina King movie for the month.
She's I told you, she was not a slacker in any way. She went out and got roles in like almost every major film, by that she could. So you'll see her in a lot of these movies.
So this movie, this is what this movie is about. This is a really interesting plot description. In this movie, we see the world through the eyes of main character Justice, Janet Jackson, a young African-American poet. A mail carrier invites a few friends along for a long overnight delivery run.
It's probably a little bit
nominated for an Oscar. This was nominated for Best Original Song again. Did not win, but Janet Jackson was nominated for that.
Yes, it's not one of his better reviewed movies, but I also, like I said, I always have a suspicion that a lot of these movies that are not well reviewed, sometimes I literally think it's just like they will accept some things in other mainstream movies that they will not accept in movies that have like an all-black cast. Somehow they suddenly have a problem with some of these things that they didn't have with a different film. So I always want to go, now I want to go back and watch it for myself again and let's see what we really think of this movie. I mean, it's also like, how many times is Tupac in a film?
Not many.
The reason he's in there is because of the writing talent. The talent as an artist, made him a choice to be in the film. Not just that he was a star musician. Obviously, they have 2-star musicians, but I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. But this movie was anybody who loved Janet Jackson went to this movie. Anybody who loved Tupac Shakur went to see this movie. So maybe there was also sort of the cultural attitudes about rap musicians may have, I think, also sort of added a weird inflection, just downplaying what the movie could be. But I don't know. We'll watch it and see. Maybe it is just a fun star turn for these people that has a nice, sort of core of social justice and involved in it, But I mean, Maya Angelou is in a movie.
Yeah.
How bad can a movie that Maya Angelou signed on to be in, how bad can that movie really be? She had to have seen something, and she's a writer. I have a feeling she would have read something and been, she didn't like it. She would have just said no, you would think. But also, like I said, there wasn't any other mainstream Black filmmaker working in Hollywood. So maybe there was also a lot of other Black artists who were like, hey, I want to be in his movies. I want to normalize this as part of Hollywood now. So let's show that these movies can make money, and let's show that everybody wants to be in these movies, So I hope that there was we had hoped, I think, that there would be more, that this would lead to more mainstream Black filmmakers. But I don't know if that's actually come to pass. There are some now.
Yeah,
I think
better
more people of color in the director's chair. But at the time, it was he was the only game in town in Hollywood. He was the only one that somehow was given, the latitude to make stories about Black people, and make them big budget movies.
Circuit.
Yes, but there's, like I said, I've said it about before that I think that there is a power in having that representation in this milieu of Hollywood movie making or crowd-pleasing cinema, whatever you want to call something that's made for, quote, the masses, and maybe is not as artistic as we want everything. I get all of these things, but I also think that there is, everybody deserves to have a voice in every arena of filmmaking. And I don't think that the people at the top of, the money mountain in Hollywood should all be white people making these decisions and making these films. So we definitely need to have the diversity there as well as everywhere else. And it's really, really difficult to break into the upper echelon of Hollywood to become a mainstream filmmaker there so quickly after film school. And he didn't have, there wasn't some like huge push of inclusivity and diversity happening in 1990. I lived in that time. It wasn't great. let's just be honest. It was not great for people of color. The 80s were not a great decade for that, or for gay people, or so it's not like we're like this was some like, oh hey, well we want to show that we're we want to give opportunities to more people because we've been there's no reckoning in Hollywood that made that happen. Like John Singleton made that happen for himself purely on the basis of his talent and his passion for filmmaking. So I think he's a worthy final choice for our Director Tuesday in this Black History Month. And it'll be really fun to see Janet Jackson and Tupac in a movie together. And then I don't remember where Maya Angelou is, but we're going to find her.
So this movie is available on Stars or available to rent. I know it's not available on my Stars. There are like different tiers of Stars. Like I get on Stars and they're like,
what?
This isn't available with your cable provider. I'm like, okay, thanks.
That's weird.
Yeah. Anyway,
I have the Stars add-on to Prime, and so that's where I'm watching.
Yeah, so maybe you're okay with it. But it is on Stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still really, really want to see Boys in the Hood. But I do like that we picked something that he maybe, Boys in the Hood would be the obvious choice.
Yes.
But maybe this movie didn't get as great a reviews because they were comparing it to Boys in the Hood, which was just like so big and it could be hard to compare.
Also, yeah, it's a sophomore film, like there's always sort of like critics just always seem to interpret a filmmaker's second film as less than, but we'll see. We'll find out.
Tomorrow, we will be discussing another recently late Cicely Tyson tomorrow.
Cicely Tyson just died like a couple weeks ago.
She died, yeah. We made like a very last minute decision to add her to our calendar for February. Because she had like just died. And we're like, well, we've got to talk about her, especially for Black History Month. So that will be on the agenda for tomorrow. Thank you guys for watching today. Please check out Poetic Justice, again available on Stars. Check out our Patreon, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Hope you enjoy